Hey guys, welcome to my channel SnackOnSyntax, and this is the first video I'm making for you guys, and I'm really excited to show it to you. So I wanted to start my YouTube journey with one of the best and one of my favorite languages in computer programming, which is Python. And this language is pretty close to my heart, as this was one of the first languages that I really enjoyed working with, and it was quite easy to learn. I don't know if that was because of my experience with other programming languages, but yeah, it was quite fun, and I would definitely recommend, if you are learning a language for the first time, I would definitely recommend to start with Python. So yeah, what you see on the screen right now, guys, is a editor, compiler, interpreter, debugger, all in one integrated development environment for Python called PyCharm. And don't get confused even if you don't get the meaning of the words editor, compiler, interpreter, debugger. We'll get into that slowly, but this is one of the best applications to start learning Python in. But before we begin learning Python, I would first like to show you how to get Python so that it's recognizable by the system and so that you can start learning Python in the first place. So let's just say Python 3 download in Google, as you can see on the screen now. And yeah, the first link which you will see will be from python.org. Click on that and then you'll go to this website, and I think by default you should open here, and yeah, you can clearly see it says download Python 3.8.5. Don't get confused if the version number, which is this number here, 3.8.5, is a bit different to what you're seeing currently. It truly and solely depends on when the video was made and when are you guys trying to open it on your desktop or your laptop or whatever. So yeah, so first download Python and install it so that it's now recognizable in the system, and so now you can actually start typing in the Python syntax. And once you're done with that, I want to show you how to get PyCharm. So just say PyCharm and that's it. And the first link on Google would be by jetbrains.com. That's the company who's made PyCharm. So yeah, it'll come by default here, and it says the Python IDE for professional developers. You can just click on download, and then it'll take you to the download page where there are two versions. One is professional, which is I think paid, and the other one is for the people who just want to start out learning Python, and that's why it's the community version and it's open source. So just download it and install it, and yeah, the installation takes like less than 5 minutes or something, and the instructions are also pretty straightforward, so I don't think you'll have a lot of problems there. And one additional thing that I would like to tell you guys to install, if it's possible for you guys to install, it's completely optional, I would like to say once again clearly, but it's quite a useful tool which I had, and I wish I had that tool when I started my own Python journey. And it's a plugin called Kite, and I'm gonna show you how you can get it. So just say Kite for the text editor you want. In our case it's PyCharm. I'm just gonna say Kite PyCharm, and the first link which comes up will be from kite.com. Click on that link, and as you guys can see in just about now, it says it's a plugin for PyCharm, and it clearly says Kite integrates with PyCharm for the ultimate autocomplete experience while coding in Python. From intelligent snippets to line of code completions, Kite helps you code faster while staying in flow. And yeah, the download button is right here, and the installation is also pretty straightforward once again. So the way this works is, it's not just an autocomplete tool for PyCharm, but it's basically based on artificial intelligence, and in the beginning phases it's probably monitoring the commands and the statements which you type most often, so that it can learn what are your favorite statements, what you like to type the most, and then when you try to type those the next time, it automatically suggests, like the way you see it on the screen right now. So every time you see like an icon with a kite icon like this, it's basically being suggested by Kite. So once again guys, this is completely optional, but I would highly recommend to get this, because you'll see later on it's quite useful. And so yeah, before we begin with the tutorial for today, And before we begin this tutorial journey, I would like to request you guys rather to like and subscribe, and of course don't forget to turn on the bell icon, as that's the most important thing on YouTube these days. It's it's just apparently the most important thing on YouTube these days. So please guys, like and subscribe to be a part of this journey, and let's start with today's tutorial. So guys, once you have everything installed from Python 3 to PyCharm to hopefully Kite, if you would like to install that, then you would see a window like this when you open PyCharm. And right now I would like to show you some basics of the Python language, for which we do not need to create a new script for now, but just would like to pull up the terminal from the bottom left. So as you can see, there's a terminal button on this toolbar below, on this where you see event log on the same line. Just click on the terminal and that pulls up a new terminal window. And the first and the foremost crucial and important and crucial step, I know those are just synonyms, but yeah. So yeah, the first and foremost important step, the first and foremost step in this tutorial is to say Python and then press enter, which basically tells the system that now we're going to start typing in the Python language and syntax. So one of the most important functions of any programming language is printing something out. So we're going to print, let's say the number 4. Let's say so print bracket, which is like parentheses, the number 9 parentheses. You shift and press on number 9 for most keyboards, and let's say I print 9, and then parentheses close, and then you press enter. Then it prints out 9, as you can see on the left. Next, let's try something else. Let's say print hey guys with quotation marks and parentheses. Hey guys, this is SnackOnSyntax, and quotation close, parentheses close, and click enter. And this time it's hey guys, this is SnackOnSyntax. So this is how you print basically. And yeah, let's get into the difference between what we did earlier, which is print out a 9, and what I did just now, print hey guys, this is SnackOnSyntax. So we can verify what type of output this was. So I'm just gonna press another enter to make some space, so I don't like lines which are too close to each other, and it also gives sort of clarity. So yeah, so let's say type, and type is another function in Python which helps you basically identify the type of the input that's passed into this function. So type and parentheses open. And for any function in general in MATLAB, in Python, in C, you will always observe that there's a parenthesis where we pass an argument to the function. So here for the print function, we passed an argument by opening the parentheses, passing an argument called 9, and parentheses closed. And now again for the type per function, I'm going to pass some arguments. So for the type, we want to know the type of the argument I earlier passed, which was 9. So I'm going to say type 9 and parentheses closed. Press enter, and then says it's of the class int, which stands for integer, which is basically coming from the exact same language of mathematics, which is the exact same definition in mathematics for all the integers existing in mathematics. So yeah, it's an int. And let's say what was the type of the sentence I earlier said. A quick tip guys, you can, when your cursor is blinking in the terminal, you can just press the up arrow and it shows you the recent commands. So since I only need to change the print to type, I don't need to type the whole thing again, I would just like to go, delete the print, say type, and then press enter. And this time it says it's of the class str, and str stands for string, and that's one of the data types in Python, or rather in any programming language in general. Let's say I type this time 3.2. Let's see what happens this time. It says float, which stands for floating point integer. All the floating points, basically all the decimals in the number system basically. Now I'm going to show you something interesting. Let's say I type 9, but in single quotation marks or double quotation marks, doesn't really matter. It's Yeah, you'll see what it is. So yeah, type 9, and this time it says it's of the class string. So yeah, it really depends how you pass the argument to a function or how you actually write something in Python. If it's bounded by single quotation marks or double quotation marks, it will be interpreted as a string by most of the programming languages and also Python. And if you remove the quotation marks, and if it is actually a number as in like an integer or a floating point, anything, then it will actually automatically revert to that data type of being an integer or floating, as I showed earlier. So that, and let's say now I say type, but again in single quotes, or let's go double quotes this time, 3.2. Well, this without quotation marks I earlier showed you guys was a float, but since now it has quotation type, it should be, yes, you're right. If you said string, you're right. If not, sorry bro, you gotta go up. Yeah, so this is some of the basics of what you can do in this local command window. Like, you know, like instead of getting the command prompt out, you can do the same thing in this inbuilt terminal. And yeah, the next thing I would like to show you is what happens, because what happens when you type, let's say, because you know, usually when we are writing big numbers, let's say we are writing 1 million, the zeros, every 3 zeros are separated by a comma. That doesn't work in Python. So like if I say print 1, 000, 000, which is 1 million basically, you'll see it's not exactly what you would expect it to be. It's just basically 100, not 100, or 100. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Okay, it's not 100 guys, it's basically whatever, like basically the print function takes in a lot of arguments, and those arguments automatically get separated every time you put a comma into it. So it's not interpreting this number as 1 million, but it's interpreting it as 1 is a separate number, 3 zeros is essentially a 0, so it's putting 1 0 there, and then again it's 3 zeros and it's just putting 1 0 there. So it's 1 space 0 space 0. If you guys thought it was 100, it's okay guys, I also thought the same when I started out. If not, then you guys are smarter, so that's pretty good. And this particular last line of code what I just wrote, print 1, 000, 000, is basically what you would call a semantic error. Let me spell that out one for you guys, like SEMANTIC, semantic error, ERROR, which is basically that the fact that the code runs without an error, but it doesn't do the right thing. Like, you know, it runs, there's no error here, but at the same time it doesn't do the right thing. So that's something called a semantic error, guys. So guys, once again we're in the terminal window of PyCharm, and I'm gonna start off by writing Python. And yeah, as I said the last time, now the system knows that we're gonna start typing in the Python syntax of the language. So yeah, interpret all the commands as you would in the Python language. So yeah, first let's start off with variables. It's a very important concept regardless of the programming language. And yeah, so variables are basically like storage places where you keep stuff in. So it's like a box basically, which holds some value. So like it could hold your watches, it could hold your toiletry, it could hold your deodorants, anything, you know, like it's like a storage box basically. So like a variable can have a lot of names, and for our simplicity right now, we just like to say s is equal to 9 and just say enter. Nothing gets printed out. However, this does not mean, this statement which I just typed, s equal to 9, does not mean that s is equal to 9. This is an assignment operator. Equal to here acts as an assignment operator, not as an equality operator, and that's fundamentals of any programming language, and in specific Python right now. So yeah, the value 9 gets basically stored in this variable called s. That's what this means. It's not s equal to 9, but the value of 9 gets stored in the variable called s. Let's make another variable called pi, and we will basically give it some nice floating point value, 3.14159. Let's see what happens. Again, nothing happens. However, the value of 3.14159 gets stored in a variable called py. Let's make another variable of the type string, what we studied just a few moments back. Let's say channel is equal to, what's the channel name? SnackOnSyntax. And let's see what happens. Once again, nothing will happen. However, the value on the right gets stored in the variable you create on the left. So let's see what is the type of this variable called channel. And as you can see, it's a variable. The variable channel is of the class string. Let's see type py. It's from the variable type, data type float. And let's say type s. What do you guys think? What should be the answer? If you guys guessed integer, perfect guys, perfect. So these are some of the nicest things you can do in any programming language. Create values, store them somewhere, and basically manipulate those values are the basics of any programming language. And now I'm going to show you some invalid variable names, like basically a variable name cannot start with a number. So let's say I make a variable 23 channel. It will definitely give me an error, because even though it doesn't mean anything, even if I try to assign something to it, it gives me an error because it's an invalid variable name. So you can see it says a syntax error, invalid syntax. And let's say I make a variable name with a special symbol like my email id at is equal to, and I say SnackOnSyntax at, let's say, gmail.com. You know, once again it's invalid because it does not allow this special symbol at the rate or at, however you call it, to be used in the variable name. And yeah, the string on the right is definitely a valid string, but the variable name which we try to create on the left side is not a valid name, and hence it gives us an error. However, you can start by a number, by a letter. Let's say I write boohoo 23 is equal to, let's say, a value of 6.7. That works. You can have a number, but just not in the beginning. You can also have underscore. Let's say boohoo underscore 23 is equal to 4.2. Do mind that boohoo 23 and boohoo underscore 23 are not the same variables. And we can see what happens when we try to print it out. Let's say boohoo 23, print boohoo 23. It prints out the value of 6.7. Now let's see what happens when I say print boohoo underscore 23. This time it prints out a value of 4.2. So these are not the same variable names. You can also start off the variable name with a capital letter, and that's also fine. As you can see, this is all fine. So yeah, these are some of the basics I would like to show you in this tutorial. And now let's get down to the main stuff. So guys, one more thing that I would like to show you before we move on to the next section is, let's say I make a variable called class. Class is equal to, what's the class name? Python, let's say. Do you think this is a valid statement right now? Do you think this is a valid variable name with a valid value on the right side, with a valid variable name on the left side, and this is overall a very valid statement? Do you think so, guys? Let me know in the comments what your first impression was of this statement. So I'm gonna go ahead and execute this and let's see what happens. And this time, can someone tell me why does this give us an error? If you know the answer, do write it in the comments. Otherwise, I'm gonna just tell it to you right now. So basically, class is one of the word class, the variable name which we intended to write right now. The class variable, right? this name right here, the variable name, which we wanted to write, is basically one of the reserved keywords for Python. And what I mean with reserved is basically Python has some words which are basically like which are really meaningful to it. So, and you cannot interfere with those words. So it's like class in Python means totally a different thing, and hence it should not be interfered with, the word class. And there's a list of around 35 reserved keywords, I guess, in Python 3, which basically Python has a certain meaning associated with, and those words should never be used as variable names or anywhere in your code, because that will basically lead to an error, as you can see right now. Hey guys, so we are back in the terminal window of PyCharm, and now I'm going to introduce you to the topic of operators, which, just like the mathematical language, we have a lot of them in Python. So starting from addition, which is basically adding two numbers, subtraction, subtracting two numbers, multiplication, multiplying one number with another, division, dividing one number with another, are the four basic ones which we commonly see in mathematics. However, Python has, I wouldn't say additional, but they're more useful. Some of them are like quite useful for their tasks, and I'm going to show you how they can be implemented and how they are done, how they're used, everything. So let's say, first of all, the foremost step, don't forget to write Python, press enter. So now the system knows we're writing in Python. And let's say I say x is equal to, let's say a good number, let's say 4, and enter. So now the value of 4 is assigned in the variable called x. Don't forget that x is not equal to 4, but the value 4 is assigned in a variable called x. So let's say x, let's see what's x plus 4. Since x is 4, 4 plus 4 is 8, and it prints out 8. That was addition. Let's do x minus 4. This time the answer is 0, because x was 4 and 4 minus 4 is 0. Let's see what happens when I say x multiplied with, and multiplication is with the asterisk symbol, which is basically when you press shift and 8. So x multiplied with, let's say 3. 4 3s are 12, so you would expect a 12 when you get a 12. And let's see x divided by 2. I like to keep space between the operators just for clarity reasons, and that's a good practice to do, guys, to always have some clarity in your code so that it's readable and not congested. So x divided by 2, let's see what it is, and it's the answer is 2. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. We all knew that. However, can anyone notice a pattern here? So when you do x plus 4, it's 8. X minus 4 is 0. X into 3 is 12. However, this was, the answer itself was an integer. The answer here was also an integer. The answer here was also an integer. However, the answer here is a floating point. And that's how Python basically handles division. It always results in a floating point answer, regardless of whatever you want it to be. Like you want, even if you want it to be an integer, it will always be a floating point by default. So yeah, we'll look into that later, how you can convert floating point into an integer later on. So yeah, next, and I would like to show you guys an operator which is not so often seen in mathematics. So yeah, x 2 times forward slash, 2 times forward slash, and then I'm gonna say, let's say 3. First I'm gonna show you x divided by 3, and let's see what is the answer of that. So it's like 1.333333333. I don't know how many 3's, but a lot of 3's. So x, let's say twice backslash and then a 3. This basically truncates, and truncates is also quite a technical term, basically removes everything after the decimal. So initially what was 3333333, a lot of 3's basically, is now removed, and the answer is only 1 now. So this by default removes anything what is after, you know, the decimal. Even if it's, let's say I am gonna do, even if the number was coming out to be, let's say 1.9s, like a lot of nines, it doesn't round it up to 2, it would still be 1. Do keep that in mind, guys. And let's see another one. The one which I'm going to show you is commonly used in mathematics. However, it's a bit different, you know, how you write it in Python here. So x asterisk asterisk. So 2 asterisks in a row is basically exponentiation. So it's like x to the power of 2. 4 to the power of 2 is 16. So we expect a 16, we get a 16. And let's say a really useful operator is a modulus operator, and what it does is basically it shows you the remainder of a division done. So it's like x was 4, and let's say x modulus is represented by the percentage symbol, which is basically shift and 5. So x modulus, so 4 divided by, let's say, 3, and the remainder of that basically. So yeah, 4 divided by 3, you get the remainder 1, and hence the answer is 1. So these were some of the basic operators which you can use in Python and for your calculations and a lot of other things. And these are really, they might look simple, they might be new for you, but they're not that complicated, and these basically form a really big part of the language. Next, guys, I would like to talk to you about the order of precedence, which is a very important thing when it comes to operators which I just explained above. Without this, you are likely to get confused and you might not end up with the right answers. So it's the order of precedence is nothing but a sequence or like a hierarchy of how the functions are given precedence, or you know, how certain operators are given more precedence over other operators. So for this, I use a very simple rule which I learned in my high school, which is called BODMAS, BODMAS. You can Google the term for the BODMAS rule, and what it means is B stands for brackets, O stands for orders, D stands for division, M stands for multiplication, A stands for addition, and S stands for subtraction. So it's basically brackets, orders, division, multiplication, addition, subtraction, and bracket is the highest order of precedence and subtraction has the lowest order of precedence. So for example, if I show you guys a slightly complex but yet easy, like 5 minus 2 into, let's give a space there, 5 into 2 into 2, let's say. So let's see what the answer is, and the answer is 1. Can you guys guess why? Because it's basically because 2 into 2 is 4 and 5 minus 4 is 1. So that's why we get the answer 1. But imagine our original intention was to do this first, do the 5 minus 2 first, and then multiply it with the next 2. But since we just wrote a very abstract, very vague, statement right here, we didn't know what to how the Python interpreter would interpret this. And that's where, most commonly people make mistakes, and that's where their code goes wrong. So in order to avoid this, there's a very simple fix, guys, and I would highly encourage you guys to use it. So just use parentheses for every time you want to, every time you want to indicate Python to, calculate a certain section first. So it's like, let's put the same statement, in this form now, 5 minus 2 and then parentheses close and then multiply it with 2. Not 22, but 2. Yeah. So this time what Python would do is it would first calculate 5 minus 2, which is basically 3, and 3 into 2 is 6. Now this time you should get the answer 6. And that's exactly what you get in the end. So that's a very simple rule, guys, but it goes a very long way in avoiding a lot of mistakes, avoiding a lot of crashes, avoiding a lot of confusion, and just stress that you're not getting the right answer despite writing the right form of code. And yeah, that's one of the most common mistakes which people make. So next I would like to show you guys something. Let's say I just want to start a new terminal. So yeah, just close it. Once again, I'm gonna say Python, and yeah, we have it here. So let's say x is equal to 5. I'm storing the value 5 in a variable called x. Then let's say I say y is equal to 6. I'm storing the value of 6 in a variable called y. Let's see what the answer is when I say print x plus y. And what it does is it first calculates what is x plus y, where the value of x is 5 and the value of y is 6. 5 plus 6 is 11, and then it just prints out 11. So that's pretty straightforward, guys. However, I would like to show you how this changes depending on the data type. So let's say this time I say x is equal to 5, but not as a number but as a string. So let's say 5. Gonna mark the string with double quotation marks. It basically updates the last value of 5. So here the 5 was actually an integer, but now it's a string because it's enclosed by double quotation marks. Now I'm gonna say y is equal to, in single quotes, doesn't matter double quotes, single quotes, it's all strings, guys. So single quotes 6. I'm gonna press enter on that, and now the value of y is also updated from earlier being an integer which held the value of 6 to now being a string which has the number 6 in it apparently. So now if I do the same thing again, print x plus y, let's see what we get. This time we get 56. No guys, 5 plus 6 is not 56. So what basically it's doing is it's concatenating two strings together, and concatenation is nothing but joining the two strings together. So it's like 5 is joined with the next string which is 6, and it's like it gives out the output of 56. So let's say the message, right? Let's say the message is, I want to make a new variable called message, and message is subscribe to, let's say subscribe to SnackOnSyntax. Yep. Now the the variable message, msg, not message but msg, short for message, has the value of subscribe to SnackOnSyntax, the string stored in it. And let's say I say frequency for freq is equal to 3, and now I'm gonna say print message times frequency. Let's see what happens. So it basically prints out the same thing thrice. However, you can see there is no space between syntax and subscribe, and that's because the way we framed up the variable message. So if I go back to update my message variable and add a space after the x, which I just did, and press enter, the value gets updated. And now if I say the same thing again, print message times frequency, now you can say it's much clearer. There's no space here. Subscribe to SnackOnSyntax, subscribe to SnackOnSyntax, subscribe to SnackOnSyntax. I know guys, it's a bit too much of promotion, but I mean, this is just my first video, so I'm really excited. So yeah, that's the last thing what I want to show you about operators and how they perform depending on the data type. Now I'm gonna close this one up. Now I'm gonna show you how to make a script, guys. So it's like you go to, this is the window where you actually see your projects. If you don't see this, just click on file and say open, and then choose the folder where you would like to create your scripts. So for me it's under SnackOnSyntax, and I just located the directory on my PC, and then I go and I chose the Python scripts folder. So I click on OK, and then it asks you whether you would like to open this in this window or open it as a new window. But for me it doesn't matter, so I'm just gonna say this window. Then it kind of refreshes, and yeah, so now you'll see something like this, and then you can just go on your folder, right click and say new file, and this time on the file, let's say I'm going to say lesson1.py. Don't forget that Python files have an extension of .py, and that's what basically tells the system that this is a Python file, and all the things, all the code written in it should be interpreted, all the text written in it should be interpreted as a Python language code, you know. So yeah, once again, because something came off. Yeah, so now when you see your cursor blinking there, that means the file has been created and it's ready to start typing code in it. So I would like to introduce you to the concept of comments, and comments are a very important aspect of coding. because they don't add anything to the code itself, but they do add something, for the reader who's reading the code. Or if you give your file to someone else for the use, or if they want to edit your file, it tells them a lot about. It's an opportunity to tell the reader about your code. So what I'm trying to say is, let's say this, and yeah, the way you type comments are by basically typing this hash symbol, which is shift 3, and then you can just say anything, and that the whole line will be commented out. So whatever you type in that line will not be part of the program, that particular line. So let's say this will not be printed out, and let's press enter, go to the next line. You can see the line numbers on the left side. In line 2, I'm going to write print this will be printed out, and that's it, guys. Now to run this, just right click and go to run lesson 1, and then you can see it runs. And then you can see the first thing, this will not be printed out, is not actually printed out because we had a hash symbol before it. However, the print statement is printed out. Let's see what happens if I put a hash right in front of this one also. And let's try to run it again. This time nothing runs. I mean, it runs, but there's no output. So you can see that there's no output in this one. So that's what I wanted to show you guys. And the next thing which I would like to show you guys is how to get input from the user, how to be more interactive with the person on the other side, or how to get any sort of input from anyone who might be the user of your application. So let's say we make a program where we ask for the name of the person, and then we greet that person with their name. So let's say that's a variable called input. And once again, guys, you cannot have this as your variable name because input is a reserved word in Python, so you cannot have a variable name which is called input. So yeah, that was just a small check, guys. And let's say I'm gonna say user input. That's completely acceptable. And the way you get user input is using the function input, and that's the reason why it wouldn't have been an acceptable variable name, because it means something in Python. And yeah, so just enter your message here. So I want to say enter your name and then a colon, and yeah, that's it, and a small space after it. So basically the way it will work is it will give a prompt which would say enter your name, and then whatever the user types, and then they press enter. Whatever they type gets stored in the variable called user underscore input as a string. So always remember that the output of the input function is a string. So yeah, now we're gonna basically print it out, print the greeting out. Print, let's say good morning, and then we just have a comma in the middle, then whatever the value of user input is. Let's see what happens and what is the output of this program, guys. So run lesson 1, enter your name. So my name's SnackOnSyntax, and I press enter. It says good morning, SnackOnSyntax. So one important thing to observe is this space between the G of morning and the S of SnackOnSyntax, and that's primarily because of the comma we put in the print statement right here, guys. So yeah, the comma by default adds a single white space right after whatever string you put that in between. So that's how you get input from the user, and do remember that whatever input you're getting is of the type string. So yeah, I'm gonna just make one small exercise to show you some concepts of what we learned in this lesson, and that will be the end of this lesson, guys. So yeah, let's say I'm gonna make a volume measurer, like volume calculator, volume set height. So we'll make a program which basically calculates the volume of a cuboid. The volume of a cuboid is given by the formula height into breadth into width. So set height, breadth, width. That's a comment, guys. And let's say I create the variable height. Let's say the height is 5 units, and let's say the breadth is, let's say, units 4 unit, and width, let's say the width is 3 meters, but of course we cannot say meters there, so let's say 3 is the width. And what we do in the end is basically we make a variable called volume, and as I said, the formula to calculate the volume of a cuboid is the height into breadth into width, or in whatever way you want to say it. You're just going to say height times the breadth times the width, and that's it, guys. Now it will calculate height into breadth into width, and whatever the number is, it's just going to store it in the variable called volume. And now we're going to print it out. So let's say, don't forget to comment, guys. It's very like useful in the long run, because right now you might think, okay, it's just 10 lines of code, it's pretty fine. But when you create big programs, it kind of gets confusing, especially when it's someone else who has to read your program. So yeah, volume is basically, I'm gonna say calculating volume of cuboid for the comment here, and then just saying printing the result out. So print, we're gonna use the function print, and then we're gonna say the volume of our cuboid is, then just gonna have a comma and then the variable. And let's see, guys, what is the output. So it says the volume of our cuboid is 60, and that is exactly what we would expect, because basically we're doing height multiplied by breadth multiplied by width, which is 5 into 4 is 20, 20 into 3 is 60, and the value 60 gets stored in the variable called volume, and then we use that variable right here in our print statement, and then this is the output we get. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the first video, and I hope you continue to watch my series, which I would put out slowly, and I hope you can end up learning the language of Python. And yeah, I hope we can learn something together, and I look forward to seeing you guys once again. So thanks for watching once again, guys. Do like and subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the bell icon